Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today.
Hey there, miners. Welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the official home of power mining analysis. Friday afternoon, the end of the trading week. We're going into a short week with Monday being a holiday. Bitcoin has now fallen below $110,000. And we've got some data and charts to round out this week's event. In today's video, we're going to be looking at HODL as a percentage of market cap for the Bitcoin mining stocks, analyzing what we're seeing in the market right now and comparing that to the premium some other Bitcoin proxies are receiving. Before we get into it, take a second, smash the like button, you guys. Big help to myself and the channel. Anthony loves it. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comment section below if you're going to be attending next week's Bitcoin conference in Vegas. We'd love to meet up. With that being said, let's get into today's video. Okie doke, Anthony, another week in the books here. Friday midday, Bitcoin has pulled back slightly. We're going to be talking about that. You've brought along your HODL as a percentage of market cap table as well. So some good numbers, some good data in today's presentation. And before we get into it, a quick update on the power play, our members only videos. We have been a little slow on those recently, you guys. We're sorry about that. Haven't been making a ton of trades, to be honest, Anthony. We've kind of been observing the terrain here and seeing how these tariffs impact the market, Bitcoin and the miners, but we will resume regular updates for the power play next week. And with that being said, Anthony, let's get into the main event here. So Bitcoin currently in the 109,500, 600 kind of range. This is down a few thousand from where it was trading last night and where we'll start the podcast off today.
Yeah, and yesterday we'd reached 112,000, and the expectation was we were hoping it would just, inch itself closer and closer higher, giving the miners a bit more respite in being able to mine profitable Bitcoin. But as we'll come on to in a second, there's a couple of news items that put a stop to that, and we saw the Bitcoin price. Literally, I was watching it as it dropped from literally 111,000 down to 107,000 in literally 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, very interesting. We talk about volatility a lot on the channel. You can see on the 21st, a very similar drop, Anthony. Like you say, essentially falling off the cliff there. They say stocks take the stairs up and the elevator down, and it appears that's what happened the last few days. Now, that's because of our good friend Donald Trump. He's back at it with the tariffs, now threatening to put a 50% tariff on the EU. Potentially as soon as June 1st, so I guess about a week out from now. And for Apple or people invested in Apple, not looking great there. Potentially a 25% tariff on phones that are not made in the United States. So just when we think we're out of the woods in terms of the tariff and trade war troubles, Anthony, he serves us another curveball here.
Yeah, and that's the challenges we face. I mean, we saw the market react when he started with the tariffs with Canada and Mexico, and then he rescinded on those and gave them time to discuss and move forward. And then it was literally the rest of the world on the attack, and we've seen some of those being pulled back. I think the UK have got an agreement now around about 10%. Europe though, 50%. That's interesting because Europe's probably one of the biggest markets in the world. So, you'd want to probably have Europe as your partner. Certainly, when you think about a lot of the American bases are in Europe, they're strategically placed. So you want to keep them as a partner at close by. So I think maybe this is more of a knee-jerk reaction. We'll see that probably be rescinded again in the next week before the 1st of June. And Apple have indicated they're going to start producing more phones in the US, but obviously the president's not happy that the majority of Apple phones are produced in China, and has then hit with a 25%. Now, I'm just in my own curiosity, it's like who actually benefits from this 25%? So similar things happen in the US, and so we want to make sure that people can still afford to eat and just live their lives, in a better way than they have previously, maybe. But all this talk about tariffs doesn't help everyone. We understand he wants to get a deal, and he's a businessman at the end of the day. So let's see what the outcome of that is there. But it did actually have an impact straight away. But as you can see from Apple shares, as you can see from Bitcoin price, it has recovered a couple of thousand. It's back in the 109,500 now. So 2 or 3 days ago, that was all-time high. So we're still in that banding there, and with lots more buying pressure on the Bitcoin, the likelihood is we'll see higher Bitcoin prices than we'll see lower Bitcoin prices in the near future.
Yeah, you're certainly right. And talking about the income disparity, I was just down in Mexico for the week, Anthony, and you go to these resorts, everything's fancy and so glamorous, and you go a kilometer outside of the resorts, and there's literally people living in shacks with no air conditioning, no water, no doors. So realistically, that's the mission behind Bitcoin, is to help everyone be able to save and live a better life. But you're totally right with these taxes, tariffs, really kind of a lack of strategy almost, it appears. And we've heard that flood the zone comment in terms of Trump's political strategy. So we'll see where this all ends up. In terms of Apple itself, dropped into the $194 range after this news. It was down around 7%. It's recovered a bit now, Anthony, on par with basically some of the worst performing miners on the day, which is interesting that the miners have responded so negatively to the downside. We've talked about this correlation between the Bitcoin miners, the price of Bitcoin. We've talked about maybe this lackluster performance on the way up. It sure seems they're correlated on the way down. Any uncertainty in the price of Bitcoin, the miners generally responding or over responding to the downside.
Yeah, and I was getting alerts coming through from a trading account as soon as that tariff news was released, and prices of some of the shares were dropping further than they are now. But if you look at the list there, and literally the majority of shares are in the red. You can actually see that a lot of the shares were even further down, a couple of hours ago at market opening. So there has been some recovery. That you've seen some shares there on the upside, even though they're still red, they were significantly down. So let's hope that we hear some positive news in the fact that there's going to be an agreement with Europe, and also on some of Apple is the largest company in the world from market capitalization. I think last time I looked there, it's close to or maybe above 3 trillion, certainly above the value of Bitcoin itself. So we want to make sure that that gets resolved in quick time, and we get some clarity back in, and the markets start performing as they should be, and Bitcoin price will do its thing, as it's been doing for the last 6 weeks. It's been doing really well, and we hope it continues.
Yeah, I certainly think it will. I was feeling like a big miner double-digit day today to the upside, but apparently not, Anthony. Now, David Bailey, the organizer of the Bitcoin conference, he's come on and said, if you're selling your Bitcoin because Europe just got slapped with tariffs, you don't understand the point of Bitcoin and you're not going to make it. So I guess alluding to our previous comments there. However, it doesn't appear Bitcoin is the target of Trump. He's come out with a statement saying the USA is dominating in crypto, Bitcoin, etc., and we're going to keep it that way. Further extenuating that point, he's sending both of his sons down to Las Vegas next week. We're going to be in attendance, Anthony, alongside JD Vance, some of the main political names in this administration, all convening down on Las Vegas for the biggest Bitcoin conference in the world. And lo and behold, Anthony, you're up there with the main speakers on the main page, and you're going to be hosting a panel on Wednesday, the 28th. So we hope to see you guys all there.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I've actually been on a panel before with Andre, so we're familiar, and it'd be great to meet both Dan and Jolie as well. So, I've managed to have a call with all of them already just to make sure we can have this panel give out some great education to the audience and give them an understanding of what can happen by using the sort of like the energy and heat and AI to drive additional revenues to Bitcoin mining, because we know from the set of results we've just seen through for quarter 1, these miners need to look at maybe some secondary income revenues coming through, and how they're going to meet the future in terms of how they're going to look at energy prices. We go through another halving, and the difficulty continues to rise, as we've explained on many podcasts.
Yeah, certainly a difficult situation as those revenues get cut in half each and every 4 years on a consistent basis, Anthony. Now, we wanted to throw some data and tables into the podcast today. We haven't touched on this one in a week or so, and there's been some big changes as a result of the run Bitcoin's been on. So this is your HODL as a percentage of market cap. Basically looks at the amount of Bitcoin these companies hold, converts that to a real-time value using today's Bitcoin price, and compares that versus their market cap. Some interesting standouts here, Anthony. The largest Bitcoin miner in the world, the second largest corporate Bitcoin balance sheet company, Marathon, is trading at less than the value of their Bitcoin. How does this make sense when we look at strategy? They've got a NAV of 2. I've seen some people talking about that going up to 2.7. However, the second place company, nowhere even close.
Yeah, it's a head scratcher. We look at strategy. They've got 570,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. They're literally at the moment being given a 2x in terms of rate from the market on their HODL value. So their HODL value is valued twice as much as the actual current value of it. And these miners are getting nothing. They're not even getting, in terms of Marathon, not even getting the value of the HODL. So this is where there's a disconnect. Now, obviously, we can't compare mining companies to Strategy. That wouldn't be fair, because Strategy is a company that literally just buys Bitcoin, doesn't do anything else. It doesn't have to buy mining machines, doesn't have to pay loads of staff. It doesn't have all the ordinary operating costs of running a Bitcoin mining company like these companies have. So, for Marathon to get 350,000 mining machines working at all their 30 plus sites or whatever, that takes an enormous amount of capital and effort and people to deliver that. They now own 60% of their sites. So again, they're going to have staff at all those sites running the actual business. And so to do that, it needs capital, and we know that Marathon have, within their debt structure, they've got a couple of big convertible notes. Now, they did use them convertible notes to buy Bitcoin. I don't want to say that they're, the company's worthless. I mean, you have to remember that they do have a significant amount of value in terms of machines, in terms of sites, but they also have some debt against that, so it brings it down. But they're not given any sort of credibility for having any Bitcoin HODL, and neither is some of the other ones. I mean, DMG are a company with very little debt, effectively, and we'll have Sheldon and Steve on the podcast later today to go through their numbers. But they're a small miner. They've actually sold a bit of Bitcoin in April to cover some of their bigger capital costs, and they're down to 351 Bitcoin now. That's probably, close to 38, 39 million in value. Market capitalization is only 42 million for the company. So they're not given any recognition for all the sites they have. And yes, they've got 2.1 exahash, and a lot of those machines are actually brand new S21 machines. So it's not like they've got an old fleet either. Plus, they've got, they're moving into a number of other areas. We'll cover that on the podcast there. But again, not really given the recognition. And you can go down the list and look at other miners there that don't have, large amounts of debt, and so they're not given, probably any premium whatsoever on the Bitcoin. So it is a sort of like a scratcher. But we don't want to put them in the same bracket as MicroStrategy or strategies are known now, because it's two different types of business.
It certainly is. And what's interesting for me is when you look through this table within the same industry, Anthony, you look at a company, say Core Scientific, maybe not the biggest mining fleet, but they've already secured that HPC deal. Then you look at someone like Riot or Iren, very similar in terms of outlook, HPC opportunities, hash rate, Bitcoin production. However, Riot has a substantial HODL, whereas Iren has no HODL. So it's interesting to see how these different strategies within the Bitcoin mining sector have played out and how the market's rewarding each one of
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, and actually, you raise a good point there. I mean, we look at Iren; they've got no hodl. So Iren's business, it's now over 40 exahash, going to 50 in the next effectively 5 weeks. So you think about the Childress site, you think about the sites they have in Canada as well, and they have value. They're given a value for their business of $2.2 billion. Then look at CleanSpark, who are effectively very, very similar hash rate to Iren and also going to 50 exahash. Now, Iren haven't built their HPC big site yet, so really that's a future valuation. But when you look at the HODL value of CleanSpark, 1.3 billion, and take that away from the market capitalization, that means that CleanSpark's 50 exahash is only valued at 1.3 billion, whereas Iren's is the market's given that 2.2 billion. So it's giving Iren nearly 900 million more in terms of value for an organization that delivers a very similar amount, maybe even well, actually slightly less Bitcoin per month at the moment. I mean, we'll see at the end of June and July when the numbers come through for delivering 50 exahash. I mean, Iren's operational monthly productions are probably slightly higher than CleanSpark's, but only slightly higher. They're both two very, very good operators. But that's just an observation there as to why, why is CleanSpark not getting that valuation when, essentially they do a decent job of delivering good updates month by month.
Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now.
Yeah, they certainly do. And that's where I was going with that. You can almost start to use variables or wind back these equations and say, okay, well, say 900 million premium on Iren. How much of that is attributed to potential AI or an AI contract? Start to work back through the numbers. But either way, Anthony, we feel the miners right now are significantly undervalued based on a HODL percentage, based on AI opportunity, based on Bitcoin potential. There's a number of factors here. And we've talked about that convertible hedge strategy that a lot of these miners have found themselves in as a result of those convertible notes with the very low percentage coupon rate. Now these hedge funds have put out short positions and obviously handcuffing the market or the sector right now. But we are optimistic that they will find a way through that. Now, speaking of Iren, Anthony, there's been a couple of press releases out today. One from the SEC, a Form S8. So I'll let you walk through this one and then we'll get into the lighter update here.
Yeah, this is effectively just a document that tells us, something's happened within the company itself. And these get issued by the public mining companies on an absolute regular basis, even when they issue like an operational update as such like. And this actual update itself is registering a further 5 million additional common shares under the 2023 long-term incentive plan. So this is effectively to set aside to cover things like stock compensation moving forward. Now we know that Iren have 2 different types of stock compensation. They have a long-term stock compensation where if the share price reaches a significant amount, I think last look it was like $75. I know when they first started it was $375, but I think the dilution brings that down a little bit. So $75, that's a long way from where the share price is today. But they also have a more of a standard stock compensation, which is probably given to them on reaching certain targets throughout the year, like many of the miners there. So this is really just registering the shares that will go into that process there. And every quarter you'll see on Iren's accounts, they actually put in two amounts for stock compensation because they have effectively two schemes. And during the year, they'll be allocating shares should they reach the targets that are set for each of those stock compensation policies. So this is a standard document there. Nothing too much to worry about there. I mean, obviously, 5 million does sound like it sounds like a lot of shares. I mean, the share price today at $9, that's like $45 million worth of shares. But there's a lot of people who work for Iren, and I imagine most people will be involved in the stock compensation scheme, which is aligned to make sure that everyone's working in the same direction. I mean, it's not just Dan and Will who are making the company achieve 50 exahash by June. It's the rest of the company, and all, working alongside, managing contractors, and delivering to make sure they reach those targets. So everyone probably gets an element of that stock compensation. So nothing untoward, and so just another update from Iren. Yeah.
It appears Dan's putting those shares to good use, Anthony. The next update here, he's picked himself up a nice little beach house. So in lighter news, we wanted to provide an update, get your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, and you know what? We said this before. We don't mind directors selling shares. I mean, it's I've sold shares last year. I sold some shares in Ireland last year. You were with me. We were down in Texas last year, and the share price was getting towards $15. And I'll be honest, I took some profits. Why not take some profits when the share price, you've been paying $2 for the share and they come in at $15, $14, $15. So, in this space, people had the opportunity maybe towards the end of 2024 to take some profits, and those that didn't have probably seen the share prices drop 50%. So there's no issue selling shares. Dan's got a lot of shares in Iren. He's built this business. But remember, before Dan came, and built Iren with his brother Will, they both worked for Macquarie. They both worked, in senior roles there. And Dan, even on the podcast last week, was telling us about the size of the some of the contracts that they worked on. I think they'd grown to like $6 billion in terms of these asset infrastructure contracts. So, he was obviously a very well rewarded person for that. And effectively, he's got, and Dan's got a family. He's got a young family there, and if he wants to spend his money that he's earned and his shares that he's earned buying a property that he'll live in probably for a long time, then that's down to him. It's no problem there. Just don't do anything untoward with the company the day after you sell your shares. That's the only thing we don't want to see.
Sell as many shares as you want. Just don't run an ATM the next day, Anthony. That's all we're asking for. Now, another lighter story we wanted to update on, James Wynn. So this is the guy's account here who's put on this $800 million 40x Bitcoin long position, which is just insanity. So give him a follow. This is great entertainment if you're a Twitter regular user. He's now said the Bears are coming for him. The Bulls versus Bears battle here, Anthony. He's upped his position now to 809 million. Just incredible looking at the volatility. He put out a tweet within an hour. The position, sorry, not the portfolio, was down 7 million to up 7 million, I think in a 42-minute span. So just incredible there. And really no wonder he's so bullish. We've seen tremendous ETF inflows. Another $934 million yesterday, Anthony, 7 consecutive days. The most popular option or strike price option right now on Bitcoin, $300,000 by June. Just incredible.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the James Wynn update there. I mean, in my simplistic terms, the position value he's got there is $809 million. Now it's 40x. So I'm assuming the value of what he's actually put into that trade is about $20 million itself. And at 40x, it gives him an $809 million trade effectively. I've seen a lot of these, analysts and YouTube fanatics, who put their trades on social media on a regular basis. You mentioned one yesterday. I think Crypto, who's based in Dubai, has been very successful. I never see him do anything at 40x though. I mean, he even says that, with Bitcoin, probably keeps it to the high single digits, maybe stretch to 11 or something like that. Even though he feels it's not as volatile as some of the other coins that people are trading as well. So it's not just Bitcoin they're trading some of the altcoins. And that can be a real challenge. Bitcoin is volatile, but nowhere near as volatile as some of the other coins there. And equally, we've talked about volatility of mining stocks. These altcoins can move massive amounts in short space of time. I mean, just remember the day before the inauguration, there was a certain meme coin that came out that day, started at $4, went to $79, and then came all the way back down the following day. So, the hundreds of thousands of percent that changed in one day. That's volatility. Interesting though, his liquidation price here, 102,000. I mean, it went down to 107 in terms of about 3 or 4 minutes from 111. I bet he was twitching a little bit as that was happening, but I mean, fair play to him. With that size of value there, he's obviously a very effective trader. To have that size of trade in place, 20 million is a substantial amount of money for anybody. In fact, 20 million, that would buy him a house next door to Dan Roberts.
There you go. And making reference to the Trump coin, another moral dilemma that we've encountered this year on the podcast, Anthony. I think you're right in reading that. You can see the margin position there, 20,248,000. So either way, Anthony, 20 million is still a substantial bet. And I'm sure you're right. He was probably sweating bullets there on the way down. Now, this has caused, obviously, a lot of people to start looking at Bitcoin. We've talked about the snowball effect as people continue to pile money into the ETF, almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. Forces the ETF to buy more Bitcoin. Bitcoin price goes up. They feel good about their investment. As a result of that, we're now seeing Bitcoin held on exchange nearing all-time lows. You can see over 107,000 Bitcoin has come off exchanges around the world. This is the cumulative total of all exchanges. We're now sitting in the 2,158,000 range, Anthony. But as we talk about, most of that Bitcoin is not for sale and hasn't moved in years and years.
No, and that's a 600,000 drop from literally from the end of January. So last 4 months we've seen it come down 600,000. That level of drop can't occur too many periods ahead because there's just not enough Bitcoin available. I mean, it'd only take literally just over three times that sort of level to drop now, and we've got no Bitcoin on the exchanges left. And we know a lot of people are using the exchanges to hold their Bitcoin. They haven't got private wallets. Coinbase makes it fairly easy. I've got some on Coinbase too. I've got some in a private wallet, so I need to probably maybe move mine, but it's on there. So there's a lot of people who've got Bitcoin on these exchanges with no intention of selling them. A nice opportunity to get in now, because I spoke to some people yesterday and saying, I'm too late to get in. Well, actually, you might not be too late. If Bitcoin gets to $1 million, like some of these big analysts are saying, in 3 or 4 years' time, not next week, you'll be thinking 112, 110,000 was actually quite early. So that's the sort of response I tend to give. And Michael Saylor would absolutely say the same as well. He only buys Bitcoin when it gets to its highest. So it wouldn't surprise me if we get another update saying he bought some at 112,000 just to prove that point. And there's a reason why he buys it at the highest, because his share price is also at the highest at that point there. So it means he's getting the best value for the company at that particular moment in time. So, but really low values. That 2 million is not a lot. And we know there's literally just over 1 million to mine in the next 115 years. So there's not a lot coming off there. That graphic you put up before in terms of the ETFs buying yesterday, another billion being bought yesterday, that's not sustainable, in any shape or form. And when you look at what BlackRock have been buying alone, yesterday they bought in the region of 18 days of production in one day. That's one organization just buying 18 days of production. That's like half of May's production has been bought in one day by one entity. And there are hundreds of entities buying Bitcoin, and we hear every day a new news story about a new company going out there with another a treasury management process to try and put Bitcoin on the balance sheet, and that's becoming more and more common now to see that happening. If you go back about a year, 18 months ago, it's very few organizations had any Bitcoin on the balance sheet, but this last sort of 15 months, we've seen an enormous amount. Yes, the miners have always held it on the balance sheet. That's they mine Bitcoin as anything. They either sell it or they keep it. So it is, it's either on the balance sheet or not on the balance sheet. But some of these public entities have started to buy it and started to grow significant amounts. And we like HODL 15 because he regularly puts tables out there that update this, and we've been showcasing those throughout the podcast just to highlight this. So I expect the Bitcoin price over the rest of this year to continue to rally, because there's just not enough demand out there to meet even BlackRock's requirement, never mind the other 1,000 entities trying to buy a bit of Bitcoin as well.
Yeah, it's timely you bring that up. After this podcast, I'm jumping on an interview with Thumbs Up Media. They just put out a press release looking to raise up to $500 million to buy Bitcoin. We were looking at their market cap together last night, Anthony. It's an $83 million company. So just insatiable demand here. As well, when I was down in Mexico last week, I was obviously talking about Bitcoin to everyone I met. And one gentleman said, yeah, I've got some Bitcoin. I bought 26 of them about 10 years ago for $5,000. So he quickly put me in my place there, Anthony, and he did have his on exchange as well. So interestingly enough, like you say, a lot of people just out of convenience or whatever the fact is. Now, this is a cool little chart, Bitcoin supply demand curve, just to finish off, really extenuates what you were talking about, Anthony. You can see really these two inverse curved lines, one being the total available supply of Bitcoin, one being the amount of Bitcoin left to be mined. Either way, you can see the intersection, a massive gap forming there, and Bitcoin price continuing up and to the right. Now, you mentioned Monday is going to be a holiday. That's great for us because we're going to be commuting down to Las Vegas, as we say. A nice little visual from Riot here. They're going to be down there as well at booth 1509, so make sure you guys stop in. We've got events with most of the miners throughout the week, and we're looking forward to seeing as many of you as possible.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah, there's a lot of miners going down there, especially ones that we cover on the channel there. Obviously, the likes of Core Scientific, Mara Holdings, CleanSpark are there, Bitfarms are there. All the big miners are going to be there. It's the place to be at the moment. When you've got that amount of good speakers is out there, coming to the show and passing on all their knowledge and information. Looking forward to hearing Michael Saylor again. That gives me a little perk up every time I hear him talk about Bitcoin. If ever you're feeling down, just shove one of these videos on for 20 minutes. You'll start feeling a lot better after about 15 minutes of listening to him talk about Bitcoin. So yeah, and I've not been to Vegas before, so I want to find out what all the hype's about. Maybe I'll be able to relay that on the podcast at the end of next week and let you know how it all went.
Certainly will. I've been there a few times, Anthony. I'll show you the ropes. It should be a good time. You guys have a safe weekend. Let us know if you're going to be in Las Vegas next week. We'd love to meet up with you, and we'll see you back here on Monday.